It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Penn State's head women's lacrosse coach, Coach Missy Doherty. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college women's lacrosse?
Yeah, so was graduated from college. We had a fun career playing lacrosse at Maryland, and our teams were fairly successful. So out of college, some of the colleges were looking for Maryland grads, and thankfully, Kathy Sweezy at Vanderbilt gave me my first opportunity down there. So I headed down to Nashville for my first coaching job. I always kind of wanted to be a teacher, and coaching kind of fell within those lines. So was happy to do it, and just kept going ever since.
What was your time like going to Maryland and playing collegiate lacrosse for Maryland?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great time with my friends and my teammates. We won 3 national championships when I was there. So that experience, especially going into coaching, has really taught me a lot, especially with my playing experience during that time, being someone who didn't play very much to someone that played a little to someone that started. I mean, all those experiences really provided me, a lot of learning tools that helped me coach today.
Of course, what was that experience like getting to put on that jersey and representing the Maryland?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it's about that camaraderie with your teammates, and going through those times with them, the goods and the bads, and getting out there and representing your friends and your team and really growing up and maturing and learning together and thankfully doing some really great things. So, I had a great experience, and to this day, I still get in touch with my teammates, and I'm really, fortunate that I had such a great time.
As a player, what was that experience like getting to compete in 3 NCAA championships?
Yeah, I mean, I think we wanted to compete at the highest level. You're working really hard, and there's the physical side and there's the mental side of competing at that level. I think there's a lot of teams that are physically good, but to win championships, you have to be tuned in mentally for those crunch times, and feeling that power and feeling that confidence that, you're going to go out there and play your best was a great feeling. Even the time at Princeton was assistant coach there, and we were able to win twice. It was that same thing. One of the joys of coaching, though, is really watching the team run on the field, and celebrate those national championships or conference championships or Final Four experiences. It's just something that, they'll never forget. So that's one of the great things about doing what I do now is, providing those opportunities for the athletes at Penn State.
Of course, during your time at Maryland, what was that experience like for you to run onto the field and hoist up the championships?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I think that, when you work that hard, that's the challenge that you're hoping for, and that's the goal that you're trying to reach. So when you finally do reach it, it's almost like you actually don't want the season to be over. You enjoyed it so much that you want it to continue. When it's all over, you're happy and celebrating, but you're kind of sad that a season like that is coming to an end with, how great the chemistry was, and how great, how confident you were, and how you felt like you were the best in the country no matter what game you were playing.
After your collegiate time, what was that experience like going to Vanderbilt and becoming the assistant coach there?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a learning experience. I'm really grateful for the people I was surrounded by, the players there, the coaches there. It was just a great learning experience to start figuring out how to teach the sport. There's one thing in knowing how to play it, it's another thing to figure out how to teach it. So there was some great learning lessons there, and I was really proud of the season that we had, and couldn't have asked for a better first year out of college.
After Vanderbilt, what was that like in getting to go to the Ivy Leagues and coaching at Brown?
Yeah, I mean, again, I was coaching with one of my teammates from Maryland, Teresa Ingram. She was a senior when I was a freshman at Maryland. So, going to coach with someone who was familiar. And then Kara Riza Cook was a U.S. team player at Virginia, was the other assistant. So, you were really surrounded by people who knew what they were doing and were doing it at a high level. So a lot of learning happened. And, it was a great, again, you took different things from each experience. And thankfully, I was involved in a lot there. So I was really able to gain a lot of experience in a bunch of different areas.
How was that experience like getting to coach on the Ivy League at Brown and getting to coach against some of those teams like Princeton, you went to Princeton afterwards?
Yeah, I think everything is a learning experience. I think no matter where you are, it has its pros and its cons of where you're coaching and what you're doing. And, just to learn from different, areas of coaching, whether it's learning from different mentors or learning from different experiences, whether you have a young team or an old team or, leadership has just graduated. So I think each of those experiences especially at Brown, really taught me a lot through my experiences as an assistant coach.
While at Princeton as the assistant coach, what was that experience like going to the NCAA championship at tournament? I mean, as a coach.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. Again, you're always lucky by the people that you're surrounded by. I think that, my first year there getting to a Final Four, and then my second and third year there winning national championships, was just a great experience. We took it really day by day. I would say my second year we had really old and old team with a lot of leadership. So that was an interesting experience, really riding their coattails and doing a great job. And then a lot of them graduated. So then that was the second challenge. The last year I was there is establishing new leaders and, convincing them that, we're good enough to win all over again. So it was a great experience, great people, and being mentored by Chris Saylor, one of the kind of legends in our sport as far as a coach. I even had lunch with her this past weekend. She retired last year, so having those people you can reach out to and really talk to, and no one knows what coaching is like except other coaches, and the challenges and the great things about it really can only be understood by other coaches. So still having her as a mentor has been a huge bonus.
How was that experience like in 2002 and 2003 going to back-to-back NCAA tournaments?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. It was different challenges each year. Competing at the highest level was amazing, and again, being surrounded by some of the best players and people in the country was an experience I won't forget. Again, watching them run on the field and celebrate, you just sit back and you're grateful for that experience, and any little part that you had in it, you're really grateful for.
What was your experience like first becoming a head coach for the first time in your coaching career?
It was challenging. I think, Towson, when I first got there, I think, was over in the conference, the year before I got there. So, knowing you're in an area that's a really popular lacrosse area, I really thought the program could do better and challenge nationally. So, that to me was really exciting and really a challenge I wanted to take on. And thankfully, we were able to get some great players in there and win the conference a couple times and, finish it out with an at-large bid to NCAA's in my career there. So, um, I always feel like I'm fortunate, when you're surrounded by good people, good things happen. And my assistants were amazing. And, the players that we brought there really were bought into the mission that we had. So, but it was a lot. It was a great learning experience. I think being a young coach has its pluses and minuses. Sometimes you're overthinking a lot of things just because you haven't experienced them before. But it also gives you that fresh energy to go in and really want to kick some butt.
As a young coach, what was that experience like taking that team to the at-large bid?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think our sport is super competitive. So every single game is stressful. Even now, it's never not stressful. So, you're just trying to do your best for the student athletes and getting them to believe that they're the best players on the field when the time matters. So seeing them do that, through the course of my career at Towson and Penn State has been one of the biggest rewards as a coach for those players that you look and, they're finally got it in their minds that, hey, they're the best and they're going to go out in crunch time. They don't need anything else to motivate them. But they're ready to really perform at the highest level is when you have the championship teams. So you try to nurture it, you try to grow it, you try to teach it. And at some point, the wings grow and they're ready to really take advantage of that. So seeing that at both places has been really rewarding as a coach.
How is that feeling like for you to be announced as the next coach at Penn State?
Yeah, I was really excited. I mean, I think it was a bit of a whirlwind. My youngest son was 10 days old when I interviewed up there. I wasn't necessarily looking to leave Towson, but when you get a call from Penn State, it's certainly, worth going and interviewing and checking it out. And Tim Curley and Sue Sheets at the time were amazing people. And, Tim was one of the best ADs that I've ever worked for. So, and his energy is kind of matched with our new athletic director, Pat Kraft, which I'm really excited about. So, he made it a no-brainer. I want to challenge. I want to compete at the highest level. I want to win at the highest level. So, it really felt like I could do that here at Penn State.
What was that feeling like when you did get that call from Penn State to become the next head coach?
It was exciting. I mean, again, it was a lot of two kids and a husband, and to make a move and move your family, you always are putting a lot of thought into it. But we were very excited for the opportunity, and it's something that I'm really happy we made the move. Couldn't be happier here, and really fortunate to be provided such an amazing opportunity.
As a head coach, what was that first time feeling like getting to step onto the Penn State field for the first time on game day?
Yeah, I mean, there's no place like Penn State. The fan following, the support you have here, there's kind of like kind of like an unmatched energy about the university and about the sports here. So, seeing that support through COVID and through all these things has just been, you just know you're at a great place when the chips are down and people are rallying. So we see that in our games and we see it, across the university that, people love this place for a reason. And you certainly can see it in the stands on game day.
What were some of the things that you started to do once you got to Penn State to build the culture?
Again, I think culture wise, Penn State's in a great place. They're coming here to achieve at a high level. And I was really fortunate with the athletes that were here, even when I first got here. I think cultivating and growing the talent and working our way back to Final Fours was where, we wanted to be as a program. And thankfully and gratefully, the players that came in had that same mission and that same drive and, executed at a high level. So, that was kind of the plan coming in is to play at a high level and thankfully we were able to do that.
In 2012, what was that feeling like being known as the second winningest program in the school's record?
I mean, it was great. I think that's again where you want to be as a program and as a coach. And we can see nowadays too with the sport growing across the country and more schools playing, it's becoming even more and more challenging to have those accolades and achieve those things year after year. But that's why you're at a school at Penn State because you're going to be in the mix and you're going to challenge for those things. But you always look back and you're grateful for the great seasons, and you're also grateful for the ones that didn't go quite as well because sometimes you coach the most in the years where it's a little bit harder, but you learn some of the biggest lessons in those years as well. So looking back, the great years were fun to reminisce about, but even the ones that weren't so good, I'm really even grateful for those players and those experiences.
How have you been able to build the culture into a winning program?
Well, I think you have to have the same mission. I was a driven student athlete. I took my academics seriously, took my athletics seriously, and I'm competitive by nature. So I think when you're recruiting, you end up recruiting those same type of players and people. So to be surrounded by people that want to compete at the highest level, want to be at one of the best universities in the country, it's being successful ends up being a byproduct of those things.
What are some of the game day traditions that you have helped implemented at Penn State for the women's lacrosse program?
Well, I would say Penn State has some of the best traditions in the country. So even me coming in, I really didn't have to implement my own. Our sport goes way back at Penn State. It's one of the longer standing schools that has had women's lacrosse. So I just kept the traditions going. I didn't get in the way of any of those things, and, I've been proud to be a part of the traditions. But as any alum who, played in the 70s, played in the 80s, we're doing the same cheers and we're doing the same things that we did those years, which is honestly one of the coolest things about being a coach here.
What does that game day atmosphere look like on home games for Penn State?
I mean, it's great. Panzer Stadium is one of the best places to play a lacrosse game, just the size and the way it sits down a little bit in Happy Valley, overlooks Beaver Stadium, overlooks Mount Nittany. You couldn't pick a better venue to play women's lacrosse. So, and then the energy we get from the fans and the big games, it's just electric there.
Of course, as a head coach, what is that feeling like the first time you get to step onto that stadium and see it in game day mode?
It's just exciting, and again, I think I've done this long enough that I'm actually just more excited for the players and the people around me, because some of it's their first game, some of it's their first start, some of it is their first time subbing on the field, and all those things. To be a part of those moments in their lives is just something. It's just something that's rewarding as far as a coach. I think for myself personally, I've been a part of a lot of fortunate and great things that now your gratitude just starts to kind of flip over to the players and being grateful to be a part of what they're experiencing.
As a head coach, what are some of your biggest accomplishments at Penn State?
Our team GPA cumulative last year was a 3.66, which is kind of amazing for a team of over 30 players to have a cumulative GPA of 3.66. So, combining that with great leadership and great people and, running into my players at away games that have graduated and wanted to come back and say hi and check in, really that's the most rewarding thing is the family feel that I have. The victories are always, obviously rewarding as a coach, and that's what we're going for here at Penn State. But those victories come from, having people that respond to the way you're coaching, are excited about the family atmosphere and come back and see you 3 to 4 years later, to check in and see how you're doing or throw us a text. So that family piece is probably the most rewarding because that's really what life is all about. And I think when you have all those kind of characters and traits in place, you end up getting the wins that you want as well.
What is it like, obviously, getting to coach in your conference in the Big Ten against teams like Ohio State and Michigan?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting more and more challenging. I think the teams are getting better and better. We're one of the top conferences in the country, Northwestern winning the national championship last year. Maryland obviously always a powerhouse there as well. So, I love being challenged. Again, that's why you come to a school like Penn State. You don't want to go to a place that, it's going to be easy. So it's not easy, but when our Big Ten games start, every game's exciting and you're tuning into what the other teams are doing that weekend, and just that excitement of being part of a conference and, having games on the Big Ten network. So they're program nationwide and kind of can grow our sport, have other people see our sport, is a great thing about women's lacrosse and being at Penn State.
As a coach, what is that feeling like, obviously getting to coach against your alma mater of Maryland?
Well, I mean, I hate to say how old I am, but it's been, probably close to 30, 25 years-ish since I've been there, So again, I think obviously I always have a gratefulness to them, but not knowing the people as much anymore, being here 14 years, your allegiance and your attachment is kind of where you are, so it's become easier and easier over the years, having pride in where you played, but certainly allegiance and comfort and connection with Penn State and where I am now is probably, kind of dissipates any of those kind of feelings when we're going in to play Maryland. We just want to beat them, just like we want to play anybody else.
What is that home game atmosphere like when teams like Ohio State come home to play y'all versus going to Michigan to play them?
Well, I just certainly would rather play Michigan at home than playing Michigan at Michigan. So I think everybody kind of feels the same way in the Big Ten. Playing at home in those Big Ten games is the energy is just, a step different than playing out a conference, and I think across the board, we're all better at home, when we're playing. So having that energy is great, especially in your home turf. But there's nothing like the, Big Ten lacrosse energy for sure.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to play collegiate lacrosse?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's our sport youth wise is really starting to grow across the country, which has been, amazing. When I first got into coaching, it was really East Coast centric. And now, we have across the country, lacrosse is just one of the fastest growing sports. So that's one of the exciting things about recruiting is really finding the best lacrosse players and looking everywhere for them. I think it's always, always difficult. We try to bring in, 8 to 10 players a year, and there are a lot of really good players. So I think that's one of the more difficult things is, not being able to recruit all the great players. But, I'm really grateful every year in the end when we finish our class and we look at it and we're like, okay, this class is going to help us win.
As a head coach, what are some of the things that you look at on the road out recruiting?
I think we're a running sport, you hold a stick and a ball and you run. So, you have to be able to be fit and fast and quick. Those are things that, are the harder things to teach. As you get here, you can learn about game sense and how to deal with pressure and all of those things. But probably those things are key, and second is, game knowledge. Are you talking? Are you a leader? Are you knowing what's kind of coming next? At the youth level, that's still growing in a lot of places, but that's one thing when you see it, you're like, okay, they really do understand the game and they're combining it with great fitness and speed.
For those prospective student athletes, what does that official visit look like at Penn State for the women's lacrosse?
Yeah, well, I don't want to give away all our secrets, but obviously the school sells itself when they come up here. I mean, you can see the school spirit. Our facilities are amazing. Again, for me, that academic side is just one of the biggest things. We have a great academic support system here, an amazing student athlete facility where they can do homework, see tutors, meet with our academic advisors. So that piece to me is probably the most important piece because, when you're a leader off the field and you have your priorities straight off the field, you tend to be a better on the field player. So when people come up, that's something to me that is important to show and to for them to know that when they get here, that's something that's going to be taken seriously. From the out of the classroom side, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Yeah, I don't know if you've met anybody that went to Penn State, but you're not going to find a person that went here that didn't love it, and love the atmosphere and love the community feel of a place like Penn State.
As a head coach, what is that feeling like getting to see those freshmen put on that Penn State legendary uniform for the first time?
I mean, it's great. I mean, just seeing how happy they are. Sometimes, again, you do it so long, you forget how important that is. And sometimes they remind you, like, oh my God, this is my first game. And I'm like, oh, wow. And like I mentioned earlier, that's the best part of being a coach is being a part of those experiences with them.
What is that experience like getting to see those seniors putting on that legendary uniform for the last time?
That's always like a sad thing. And honestly, it goes by so quickly. Every year in the summer, we have a welcoming barbecue for our incoming freshmen. And I feel like you snap your fingers and all of a sudden it's their senior game. So I hate that it goes by so fast. The seniors that are going to be in the senior class next year, I just cannot believe they're seniors. And you're just so sad to see them go. I think playing time is always such a difficult thing, and you just wish everybody could play every minute of every game so everyone's happy about that. Um, but beyond that, it's always such a joy to get to know them and watch them mature for 4 years and watch them grow into amazing young ladies and amazing young women. So then you're kind of sad when they reach a point where they really have it together. You have to say goodbye. So it is a tough moment, but certainly you're happy for them. And then they're texting me and coming to visit. So all that is fun as well.
As a head coach, what is that feeling like seeing them go on to go play professional lacrosse in Athletes Unlimited and the U.S. round?
Yeah, I mean, both of those things have been amazing for women's lacrosse, and it's given women opportunity to play after college. I would say even physically, if you ask other pro leagues like soccer, when athletes peak, they're going to tell you 26, 27. So to see women's lacrosse being able to be played as players get older and better and stronger has been an awesome sport to watch. And certainly our players as well. Katie O'Donnell is killing it right now in the pro league, which is really exciting, and certainly did a great job contributing at the U.S. team as well. But to be able to see our sport be played by athletes that are going to be at their peaks has been awesome.
As a coach, what is it like getting to see your players go on into the coaching world and taking the things that you taught them into the coaching world?
Yeah, I mean, it's always great to see them go into coaching, and it's always funny, even when they go into high school coaching, it'll be like 2 or 3 years after they're in it, and they'll come back and they'll be like, oh man, I'm so sorry. Like, I just didn't understand, like, the hard decisions you had to make, and how difficult it can be to balance a roster of people that are all good, and you're trying to find the fine lines of who's going to play and who's not going to play. So I generally get the most apologies from the players that go into coaching because they really understand how difficult those decisions can be and kind of how heart-wrenching they can be as well when you really appreciate all the hard work your players are putting in, but then have to make those difficult playing time decisions, which are never easy.
What are some of your future plans for Penn State's women's lacrosse moving forward?
Well, we want to compete at a high level. Pat Kraft, our new athletic director, has been here a year and he's already made some amazing, amazing changes to our facilities, just across the board. He wants us competing at the highest level, and he's really backing it up by putting the support in to help us. So that's the plan, not only to compete and win on the field, but also, again, to put some of the biggest leaders and the best professionals into the professional world when they graduate. We graduate through our team, doctors, nurses business people. One of our players getting her master's in accounting across the board, the majors, obviously. We have a lot to choose from at Penn State, but graduating leaders that businesses are searching for is sort of that next step after obviously we win a lot of games.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college lacrosse?
I would say that be in a place where you're willing to take risks and not second guess the things that you're going to do. I think the biggest hurdle that players face are the obstacles they put in front of themselves and sometimes they use other reasons for those obstacles. Well, the coach didn't want me to do this, or this player is making this move, so I can't make it. But kind of none of that is true. You're kind of slowing yourself down by giving yourself some reasons that you can't get in there and take risks. So put yourself out there. It should be you. If you're like, I don't know if I should do it, the answer is yes, you should. Because if you're not going to do it, then someone else is going to go ahead of you. And it's kind of a hard thing to do as a freshman because you're still gaining experience. That experience piece is pretty normal and nothing to be afraid of. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, but don't let the mistakes or the fear of stepping on toes keep you from doing what you can do best.
What advice would you give those college lacrosse players looking to go play professionally in leagues like Athletes Unlimited?
Yeah, I mean, go for it. I think, like I said, and even some of the players have told me they feel like they're playing their best lacrosse now because, just athletically, physically, mentally, experience-wise, you feel like you have a command of the sport. So, what a great experience to provide mentorship or little lacrosse players able to watch you play and get your autograph after games. And, what an exciting thing for our sport. So any way we can be a part of it, we want to.
What advice would you give those college players looking to go to the Olympics and represent Team USA in Canada afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping to get into the Olympics. I mean, that is the next push from the World Lacrosse. So, we're keeping our fingers crossed no matter what form it's going to be that, at some point we'll be able to be represented in the Olympics. I know there's a big push and, we're keeping our fingers crossed. I think the exposure of like Big Ten Network and AAU sports and the men's leagues that are happening are just growing awareness. And hopefully at some point we'll push into the Olympics. It's certainly going to be amazing when we do.
What advice would you give those players looking to go into coaching after their playing career?
I think that's an interesting question. I mean, I think it's a hard job. I think you have to it's there's no gray area. It's either like amazing, amazing and awesome or really, really hard. I think you never want to be the reason people are disappointed, they're not playing and obviously a lot of that falls on your shoulders. Um, but at the same time, when players come back and they thank you and really appreciate the work that you put in, it makes it amazingly rewarding. So it's more than coaching. I probably on the field stuff ranks pretty low percentage wise of what we do on a daily basis when it comes to the counseling piece or the academic piece or planning piece or just the business side of running a lacrosse program. So you really have to be all in and be able to handle the pressure you're going to face. That being said, I wouldn't have wanted to do anything else. I've been in my dream job since I graduated college. The energy I get from the people that I've met and encountered, the experiences I've had have been amazing. I couldn't have asked for a better job. So, painting that accurate picture, of like, yeah, it has some of the best moments you're ever going to have, but it also comes with some challenges for sure.
What advice would you give those future head coaches looking to build their own program and build their own legacy?
Well, I mean, I think I don't have much advice there. I mean, I think like for me, you just have to, one thing that I'm always coming back to is control what I can control. I mean, there's a lot of things that from the outside coming in at you can start to sway what you want to do. But when you get back to a place where I can control what I want to control, I can recruit the players I want, coach the way I feel right, like get back to what you can control and let the rest take care of itself. I would say for someone who's taking over a program, you might not have your recruits yet. You really have to make the most of what you have. You might want to put things in place and change things, but you're presented with the recruits that you have there. So how can you maximize that team and not lose them while you're kind of recruiting your kids? So that's kind of the first takeover, and then the second part is, be clear on your expectations. And, I think recruiting is the biggest key of getting good players make good coaches. So how can you get the best players? If you're not out recruiting people, you're probably not beating them. So how can you get the players you need to win against the teams you're playing?
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find the Penn State Women's Lacrosse Program on social media along with you at?
Yeah, so we're at www.gopsusports.com and then Penn State WLAX on Instagram and Twitter. So would love to have people come out and check out our games. And Brandon, I definitely appreciate, chatting with you.
Thank you again, Coach Missy Doherty, for your interview and best luck in your future at Penn State as the head women's lacrosse coach.
All right, Brandon, good luck to you. Let me know if I can do anything else for you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Missy, for your interview and best luck in your future.
All right, thanks a lot. Take care.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk, Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.